Hey everybody, and thanks for tuning in to this Saturday's special Free Assange Vigil. This is the 50th week, and today is day 3,483 since the illegal and arbitrary detention of Julian Assange. It is day 436 since the illegal trafficking of Julian Assange out of the Ecuadorian embassy to Belmarsh prison following a $4.2 billion international monetary loan fund to the nation of Ecuador. It is 79 days until the start of the second round of Julian Assange extraordinary rendition hearing. It is 1,113 days since Reality Winner has been in federal incarceration, and it is 99 days of freedom for Chelsea Manning. So I do, before we get started here, just want to remind everybody that we do have a GoFundMe out right now. We are trying to raise awareness about Julian's situation, and we will be hosting at least 3 weeks of protests in Washington, D.C. So if you could, please come and join us. If you cannot, please donate and share the link around to help people that are interested in helping us. Today, actually, though, I am joined by Steve Poikonen, my wonderful co-host, and today's guest is Alex Hill out of New Zealand. A lot of people know her as Candles for Assange. How are you today, Alex?
I'm very good. Well, it's still yesterday for me, but I'm still coherent, I hope. Yeah. So New Zealand, it's 5 a.m. and I think the sun will be coming up soon. The children will be waking.
Well, cool. Thanks for joining us. So if you could you give people, I mean, I know everyone probably knows, but just a little brief thing on what Candles for Assange is and kind of how you guys got started?
Right. Yep. Of course. Well, it came a long time ago. I suppose the first sign that I was going to do Assange protesting like this was when I saw Alex Taylor play violin outside the embassy and get arrested and his violin confiscated. And then I thought, well, gosh, I've got a violin, I can do that. And I managed to get myself a few protests going and quite a big crowd at first for those June 2017, 18 protests. That's right. 6 years in the embassy, I think it was at that point, June 19th. So I got going, and pretty soon afterwards, we decided we'd do an emergency short fire petition and try and get asylum for Julian in New Zealand. And the very first action we did was on his birthday. That's when we decided, and we were laying out candles on the grass outside the New Zealand Parliament, Free Assange. And I guess I'd been talking about Candles for Assange on the Unity4J Discord, and Susie being a major influence and, it showed people how you could make actions and do things to elevate this case. So anyway, the following year, we thought, 2018 for Julian's birthday on 3rd of July, we thought, why not invite the world to do that again? We'll get everyone to do candle displays or vigils or any kind of street action, whatever we can do, information sessions. And I put the hashtag out, Candles for Assange. Join Wellington. And it was just staggering. Like 62 cities came on board by the end. I didn't think there was even 62 cities on the day, but that's how many rolled out around the world. And some of them didn't even know they were Candles for Assange events. I just picked them up and tried to list them all together. London were already doing one, and the people in New York, they were a major inspiration too, because they'd started the weekly vigils. And the German crew who were on the Facebook site for Candles, they took off and ran with it. Like, they were amazing, the whole crew of them there. I think they got up to about 35 cities doing weekly or fortnightly protests just before the lockdown. So it was an incredible achievement. And I think, in some ways that weekly, relentless, small crowd gradually growing helped them get that stuff through the European Parliament, where people started to speak out for Julian. So I think they actually had a major effect there. But on top of that, New Zealand was listing all these protests that were going around the world, and any other actions we saw, we just tried to get on top of them and say, hey, let's all do global solidarity actions all around the world. And I'd try and get in touch with those people again and try and get them to do even just small actions. And then, of course, when COVID happened, all those beautiful street protests, I think all around the world, there might have been about 50 if you counted the weekly and the monthly ones. And so, of course, they're all shut down overnight, practically. A few carried on, but it was really advised not to, wasn't it? And so then the virtual idea came up, and you guys were already rocking that, and Unity4J had done a bit, obviously that before as well. And so there was this online kind of almost ready to go culture that you guys had already got together. You're the experts now. But then suddenly, like, I think all the little organizing groups all around the world, they suddenly saw that they could get on board and do something too. And our 11th of April, the 1-year anniversary of Julian's arrest, kidnapping, you could say, of course. Around that time. Where was I going? I've gone through the whole story, but I've now lost my plot because it's 5 in the morning.
You were one of the very first.
Yeah, that's what happened. So yeah, we did the virtual protest, and yeah, I think that time you guys helped us. We went live on Periscope and we went live on Facebook with Unity4J Facebook. 5,000 people saw our New Zealand protest live. I think it was Commander X. I don't know what it was, but I was just like bewildered that we could do that. And we had Mexico on, we had Austria on, we had Netherlands on, all on the New Zealand show. And I was really proud of that. And then, the fact that you guys have been running with it as well. And then, we had all the Anon stuff happening. Now we've got Anonymous Bites Back, and I've been starting to watch those as well. So there's all these wonderful things happening, and I hate the COVID. I hate the surveillance and the horrible things that are being rolled out, but that is one of the silver linings that I can see, is that people have got really informed and started to get interested in even virtual protests. So we're hoping this year we can try and encourage as many cities again to do a birthday vigil. We don't want to push anyone to do street protests if they're not ready for that. Obviously in New Zealand here, we're out on the streets, we're in almost normal. We've got the prison, outdoor prison, the painted lines on the streets, all that stuff. But we are effectively open now. So, and Australia is as well. So the Sydney and Melbourne are a little bit less so, but they are able to go out and protest more so than I think anywhere else. So we're going to have to allow for solo protests and people doing individual private actions and potentially virtual ones, if we could maybe even get that going again this year. So yeah, sorry, it's a lot to blow out, isn't it?
Real quick though, big shout out to your Mark Lubers and Anonymous Bites Back. It's about 4.5 years they've been going with that show, and they've been producing some incredible content.
I've never seen it before.
On the comment of Anonymous Bites Back, Action for Assange wouldn't exist without them.
Wow. Okay. Well, I had my eyes open when I saw that.
Yeah, early on, they brought Taylor and I on together independently. Like, I didn't know Taylor. Taylor didn't know me. They had just found her by her work in Kent State and me by what I was doing up here in Cleveland, hanging posters and stuff. And they literally just brought us on for an interview, and then this blossomed out of that. So I owe them literally all of this is in some way to their credit.
Yeah, well, I guess I could say the same for Unity4J, because I wouldn't have had a clue what I was doing. I mean, really, I was a very green activist, and I still feel so. I still feel so green, indeed. But, you will press on in your small groups and you do your things, don't you? Yeah, so
quick,
we've got 26 cities this year.
Since you brought up Commander X will be on Slow News Day tomorrow.
Yes.
So looking forward to having him back on again.
Fantastic.
It's always a good time when X is in the house. That guy is an endless source of entertainment.
It was, and he turned up twice on our World Press Freedom Day, the 14-hour vigil, where we all did an hour, each or whatever. And he turned up twice. It was lovely because I sent out that reminder. Oh, we've changed our link. And he came on straight away. It was brilliant, really unexpected. And Kathy Vogan and Joe Laurier were on at the time doing a Consortium News kind of mini slot. Yeah,
that was actually a really good interview, because Joe went on for a while, just really explaining the situation, and then that's when Commander X jumped in. So if people haven't seen that, I would recommend looking back about 2 months maybe, till I believe it was on the 11th. It was one of the first interviews that happened that day.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think you'd have been about two hours in. So Sydney had done their hour, and we'd just taken over. I'd filled in a little bit. I think there was a little bit of technical. We had to get the bandwidth getting better because we had a lot of frame problems, didn't we? But yeah, and I think it might have been the second hour of the 14 hours. So there's quite a few on Unity 4J. There's a big 11-hour one, but I've made an edited one, and you guys have got the short ones, which are much more handy. Much more handy.
So
Yeah.
if you could, because it's something that you've asked me to put this out, and we've talked about it a few times. What's the plan for the future here with Candles for Assange and with Julian's birthday coming up?
Well, like I was saying, it's hard to know where everyone's at, and you know what everyone's getting in touch and saying we're going to do something for Julian's birthday, whether it's supporting Yellow Ribbons for Assange and putting a yellow ribbon around the tree, or wearing an armband and giving out pamphlets, or whatever it looks like, the virtual version, the solar version. But we have got 26 cities that have expressed an interest in doing something, and probably out of those I've got firm details for about 7 that are on the street. So Vienna, the ones in Germany. So we've got, I probably should go through the list, otherwise I'll leave ones off. But yeah, so we've got a number of countries. We've got about 14 countries so far. But the problem is, like Natal in Brazil, they want to do a virtual protest. They can't do a street one. They're going to do the yellow ribbons just somewhere privately, and they want a platform to be able to do their show on. And so I was sort of talking to Joe Booth again about doing another one of those virtual things. Tel Aviv as well. They wanted to do. They said they'd probably do it only half in English, half in Hebrew, but they wanted to do a little segment as well, and everyone sounded really interested in that. So I can imagine it's going to be a real hodgepodge, and so that's a real hard thing to communicate in a tweet. So I'm still trying to pull all the information together. It's yeah, and there's people putting pressure on to try and give you that information. It's really hard. So yeah, everything's a bit up in the air, but I'll keep on putting out the tweets on Candles for Assange, on Twitter and on Facebook, on the Facebook group, and it will always be pinned to the top of my profile what the latest information is that I have. But you know, it'd be amazing if we could get 60 cities again. But I mean, in this culture where everyone is in such a limbo, have no idea how you can even take part in an action, it's hard to know what the plans are. But yeah, we're going to just work towards getting the events on Facebook, properly made in events, getting those links out, at least, if not having fixed details, at least having a place of contact that they can go to, someone who's organizing something in the city, or a future person to do actions with when they can more easily do them on the streets, I suppose.
So Thursday marked the 8-year anniversary of Julian Assange being granted asylum in the Ecuadorian embassy. And there are still people out here wandering around, oblivious to the reality that that Julian was granted asylum because he was a targeted individual by a hostile state power. So we found a video compilation that really demonstrates why Julian was granted asylum. And Sleepy Josh, if we could pull that up and just start rolling it, we're gonna pause it at several points and kind of talk about what we're hearing. But if we could cue that puppy up and roll tape for anyone who has any shred of doubt why Julian Assange was granted asylum, here's why. Alex, you should mute while we do this.
Should the United States do something to stop Mr. Assange?
We're looking at that right now. The Justice Department is taking a look at that. I would argue that it's closer to being a high-tech terrorist than the Pentagon paper.
I frankly, the head of WikiLeaks is not a particularly credible source in my mind. He is a, in my mind, he's a criminal, and he ought to be hunted down and grabbed and put on trial for what he has done here.
Information warfare is warfare. And Julian Assange is engaged in warfare. Information terrorism, which leads to people getting killed, is terrorism. And Julian Assange is engaged in terrorism. He should
Let's pause real quick. I want to remind people that the first person that was shown in that is the current presumptive nominee for president of the United States by the Democratic Party, one Delaware daughter sniffer, Ropey Joe Biden. The fact that he's comfortable with calling Julian Assange a high-tech terrorist, the fact that there is no remorse in his delivery, it is incredibly unsettling to me. And then we had the semi-sentient ham that is Karl Rove, and former House Speaker Newt Gingrich, who, by the way, like his voice, because I'm in my early 40s and I grew up becoming politically active in the mid 90s, Newt Gingrich's voice is very familiar to me, and it always feels like nails on a chalkboard. I know we're only a couple of seconds into what is about a 7-minute video, but I want to get some reactions from you guys.
Yeah, man, just these three fucking people. Like, just those first three, Karl Rove, Newt Gingrich, and Joe Biden, that should be enough to end the extradition, the rendition, so to speak. Because it proves that it's fucking political. They're literally like, this guy's reporting information accurately that we don't want people to know. Fucking lock him up. Like, that should be the end of the case. Like, that video right there, the first 8 seconds should just be, okay, well, case dismissed.
But I mean, this is the problem. The case in England doesn't seem to be acknowledging the political nature being a problem. I mean, I don't understand the legal jargon of it all, but when it comes down to it, it's like the arguments have been made that it's obviously political, and it's obviously about the, these forces covering their tracks, and it's just really surprising that we have to be subjected to this. I mean, there's the other videos where you can see, maybe Trump talking about and WikiLeaks deserve the death penalty, and I think those need to be shown in context with British people saying, we don't believe in the death penalty. We need to show the hypocrisy up by doing these little snippets of videos and putting them together. I think it's an awesome idea. But I mean, I just can't believe it anymore that anyone's buying any of this. How is it possible that people are just blithely watching on? I mean, I think they're just washing their heads of it.
The Five Eyes countries in particular are some of the most, if not the most, heavily propagandized nations on the planet. And part of that propaganda has been to reinforce the fallacy that Julian Assange is a bad guy, and that it doesn't matter what the material says. The material is never discussed. The character of Julian Assange as dictated by intelligence agencies, that's the only thing that's discussed. That's the aspect. So as long as they can keep people focused on imaginary character assassination, they're not going to spend any time looking into what has actually been revealed. During the last few weeks, with all of the Black Lives Matter protests and all of the people becoming activated because of that, it is really made us aware of just how much we're missing Julian Assange in all of this, how much his voice
really, is missed so badly.
Yeah.
What about the Yanis stuff that we heard, even just that snippet of him talking to Yanis and talking about the COVID? You just were needing to hear from that voice, and it is so missing, and it is so rational. And the person who has seen more classified information than anyone in the world, versus these absolute obvious cutouts. It's crazy that anyone's buying it. I don't understand it. But it is like bashing your head against the wall, Steve. You said that before, and I agree with you. Like it's how can people be buying all this nonsense?
Let's get back to
particularly with all the terrible statements that Biden made just before it all happened. I mean, it's like how can someone who just had that controversy. And, you know, if you're black, you have to vote for me. What? It's stupid, you know. And then have all this.
We would be here for 6 fucking hours if we were going to digest every dumb statement Joe Biden has made just in the last month. Just in the last month. But let's get back to this, because there's a significant portion of Eric Holder, the former attorney general, talking, and it illustrates that there is no goddamn difference whatsoever between a Republican and a Democrat in the administration when it comes to the role of the attorney general. Please, Josh,
WikiLeaks should be closed down permanently and decisively.
I think the man is a high-tech terrorist, and I think he needs to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, and if that becomes a problem, we need to change the law.
The way to deal with this is pretty simple. We got special ops forces. I mean, a dead man can't leak stuff. This guy's a traitor, a treasonist, and he has broken every law of the United States. The guy ought to be, and I'm not for the death penalty, so if I'm not for the death penalty, the only one to do it, illegally shoot the son of a
Obama, if you're listening today, you should take this
that
guy out.
By the way.
Have the CIA take him out. He broke the law. You don't have to act panic. You can act tough and say, if we catch you, we're going to hang you. Yeah. Our intelligence communities will find him. All right. That's what I'd like to see, a little drone hit Assange.
We have criminal proceedings underway. That's where I think the verdict is guilty on WikiLeaks.
WikiLeaks apparently today released what's described as a treasure trove of infrastructure targets around the world, which of course could be damaging not only to those countries but to U.S. interests. Why hasn't the government just gone ahead and shut down the site or shut down the dissemination of his information? Why can't you do that?
Well, let me condemn in the strongest terms the leaks of information that have come as a result of the actions that you've just referenced. National security of the United States has been put at risk. The lives of people who work for the American people has been put at risk. The American people themselves have been put at risk by these actions that are, I believe, arrogant, misguided, and ultimately not helpful in any way. We are doing everything that we can. We have a very serious, active, ongoing investigation that is criminal in nature. I authorized just last week a number of things to be done so that we can hopefully get to the bottom of this and hold people accountable as they should be.
Pause real quick.
So
that go ahead, Andrew.
Yeah, we were probably going to say the same thing, but I just want to point out the fact that it has been proven in fucking court that no one was harmed by anything that came out during Cablegate, during the war logs, war diaries, the Gitmo files. What it proved is that people were getting hurt, and it was just poor brown people around the world and or political prisoners and or people that Iraqi warlords just wanted to sell us. So there were people that were hurt, but their pain was revealed by these documents. There was no one aside from elites and people that were embarrassed that were caused any pain at all.
I wanna draw attention to the I guess the similarity in talking points that because if you noticed, Mitch McConnell said the exact same thing as Joe Biden. Joe Biden at the time was the vice president when he said that. Mitch McConnell, Senate Majority Leader, it was his job to obfuscate and obstruct the Obama administration at every turn, yet he's got identical talking points as Joe Biden.
It's a bit like one of those Russiagate videos where they just repeat, you know, the same, you know, it's closing in, the walls are closing in. It's like that. Yeah. We need to point it out how ridiculous it is.
And then
I got a similar answer when I took the British High Commissioner to case here on World Press Freedom Day last year, and I got a very similar answer. Obviously not so harsh as Drone, the guy. They couldn't possibly say that because it was a World Press Freedom breakfast, you know, at Parliament. But the answer was, oh, well, of course he's got to be held to account in Sweden and cough. And then a guy came up and said, well, Luke Harding said he's not a journalist. I mean, this is the mentality of these people. They're so out of touch. They're in a silo and they have no idea how ridiculous this sounds, and the other people aren't watching to know how ridiculous it is. Maybe they've all just switched off, you know?
Well, and the reason that I wanted everybody to see former Attorney General Eric Holder and hear him lie to you like that is because the same language that Eric Holder is using is almost word for word what what's his nuts Bill Barr says when he's asked about it, almost word for word. And it was the exact same way with that demented little Keebler elf that was appointed Attorney General when Trump first got elected. Jeff Sessions, that's right. In case anyone, forgot that we had a demented Keebler elf as the Attorney General for a brief period of time. But it's the same language. And if you hear Holder in there, I don't know what year that was recorded. I don't, but it must have been after WikiLeaks had revealed that there was a secret freaking indictment against him because he was treating it like it was public information. He wouldn't have been able to say that were it not for WikiLeaks exposing the fact that there was an in-the-dark investigation going on about them. He wouldn't be able to talk about it with the comfortability that he did were it not for WikiLeaks exposing what they were doing.
And you've seen that footage where you watch Julian trying to, with I think Sarah Harrison, repeatedly trying to contact Americans. I think was it the diplomatic cables, that one? I think that was around that time that everyone started calling for drone strikes and all that. But then I wasn't really well knowledgeable about it back then.
Cablegate was what really set him off.
Yeah,
they were like, "Why can't that be Hillary Clinton? Why can't we just drone the guy?" And that might even be in this video. I know there's a clip of Hillary in this video, but I can't remember exactly like which sections of it they use.
And there's the first guy we showed when we hopped back in. Not the first guy, but the guy that's like, "Oh, just fucking illegally killed the son of a bitch. I don't support the death penalty." The reason that a motherfucker like that doesn't support the death penalty is because he is guilty of crimes which would lead to his death. Because he's cool with fucking killing people, right? He's just not cool with killing people because there is a justifiable reason because they've committed crimes against humanity. That's ultimately what that guy's saying. He's like, hey, I don't want the judicials to have the ability to kill me for the terrible shit that I was involved in. So just illegally kill that guy so we can keep that legal precedent. Okay.
And before we go back into the video real quick, I got to give some props to Sarah Wagner in the chat. She dropped a comment that was like, meanwhile, at the Epstein Ranch, while all this is going on, we've got pedophile fucking predators running around free. And there's a guy that's being tortured to death in prison for publishing this material, not for getting it to a publishing agency through legal or extra legal means, not for, fucking children, but for being a publisher. He's in jail. Meanwhile, pedophiles just get to run around.
Yeah.
You live in a fucking cartoon.
Yeah. Do we want to hop back in to finish it?
Yeah, please.
Can be done, and has the government explored the ability to be able to seize the sites? Last week you were before us saying, look at all the websites we seized and shut down. That you can't do that in this case at all. What are the parameters that are limiting that, and what are some of the actions that you did authorize to go forward?
Well, it's an ongoing investigation. I don't want to get into exactly what I authorized, but I can say that I personally authorized a number of things last week, and I think that's an indication of the seriousness with which we take this matter and the highest level involvement in the United States Department of Justice with regard to all the tactics that we can do or can use to ameliorate the consequences of these actions. I don't want to get into those as well, but we will do everything that we can, both to hold people accountable and to minimize the harm that will befall the American people.
Well, I think Assange should be assassinated, actually. I think Obama should put out a contract and maybe use a drone or something.
The United States strongly condemns the illegal disclosure of classified information. So let's be clear. This disclosure is not just an attack on America's foreign policy interests. It is an attack on the international community, the alliances and partnerships, the conversations and negotiations that safeguard global security and advance economic prosperity.
This potential database for all of our enemies that now hangs on the internet and provides an opportunity for them to mine, looking for weaknesses in force protection, tactics, techniques, and procedures, who we do business with, how we cultivate sources. All this stuff is potentially out there for people who wish to do us harm to take advantage of. Well, this is the Department of Defense. I mean, we're not one who makes judgments about legal remedies and the appropriate recourse and all that kind of stuff. But as I mentioned before, we're not alone in this endeavor. The FBI, the DOJ are also investigating this, are also involved in this matter, and they will obviously have to make judgments about how to proceed.
Congress can act in an expeditious and bipartisan manner to encourage and authorize the use by the executive branch of all necessary means to respond and defeat WikiLeaks.
How is it? How is I can't stress enough. Like, yeah, you guys can't see when the video's rolling, but like we're going ape shit while this is rolling. It's one of those like you get so goddamn mad, and the people that they the different voices that are all saying the exact same things. We had it was the guy who was like, well, I don't see why we can't just drone strike a guy. I mean, that was Tom Flanagan. He was a former advisor to one of Canada's prime ministers, I think is what the notation said. There's everybody on there from Bill fucking Kristol to herself, who's just rambling and vomiting out of her mouth, and
economic prosperity for all, as long as you're in Haiti and you're building a house for $1 billion, maybe. I mean, it's just it's sickness, isn't it? But I mean, we can't expect anything from the people that are, as you say, liable to go down for this. I have to say, in New Zealand this week, we've had an MP come out in the third party, the one that's the kingmaker, I guess, called New Zealand First, and he's come out for the death penalty in New Zealand. Like, no one can believe it. And it's just so foreign, all these changes that are being brought in, and everyone's gushing about Jacinda. So we have a similar problem here. I don't know all the names of all the politicians in America, but I'm very clued into the story and how it all plays out. But I don't really understand their roles, as a New Zealander. But I can tell you from Five Eyes perspective over here, it's chilling where we're going in New Zealand, and people are oblivious, and they're going, wow, isn't Jacinda great? It's impossible to rationalize this sort of thinking. It's everywhere.
Well, there's always that Hillary Clinton is on record of saying she had a public and private position on things, and that in turn means you have a public and private persona. And I know that rolls over into politicians in other countries. There's always, you've got to present something for optics. You've got to present something that's going to excite your base, or at least get your base to vote against the other guy instead of vote for you.
Yeah. Well, New Zealand donated 18 million to Hillary, and then Jacinda got her selfie with Hillary, and women can be leaders too. It's just all sick. It really is sick, because we had nothing like what the duopoly promised us as usual. It's just the same as in America, really, here. And I think in Britain we're seeing the same thing happening. I don't really understand what's going on in Europe politics, particularly because I'm not as tapped into that, apart from listening to Yanis. But it's every single government, every single Western government anyway. We've just got to show these guys, we've just got to show that hypocrisy, and I'm sure the video will do it justice. I haven't seen it, but seeing all those clips in short succession, you cannot but see the brainwashing that's occurred, or at least that's being done to the public, the gaslighting that's being done to us.
there was one of the guys that said, get a contract on him. Like, literally talking about getting private mercenaries to fucking kill him. Like, get a contract on him. Hire a hitman. Like, that's fucking crazy. That person would even be put in a position of authority to make a statement like that.
Well,
Like,
didn't Obama have a kill list as well, of a drone kill list? And didn't that include journalists?
Mm-hmm. My favorite statement from President Obama was, we tortured some folks.
Oh.
Yeah,
no, I mean, people gush about Obama too, but do you want to hear a good story though? I don't know, are we going to go back into the rest of the film first before I go off onto a tangent? But I have a positive story, just because I played Let the Light In, which is that Unity 4J violin song. We were invited to a party where we all had to give a speech or do a talent, and I played Let the Light In. And played another violin part on top and told them the story of it. And I wasn't going to go too dark for them, but basically I said, this is really important. This isn't about this man. This is about your children's free press. I did the mother story. Anyone can organize a protest in 62 cities, blah, 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 and, whatever your thing is, I hope you can do yours too. And I sat down, and a woman across the room who turns out to be a local school teacher, she said, well, there's another side to this story. And she said the S word, and I thought, oh my God, she's going to bring up Sweden in front of this big crowd of people. I've just played a beautiful song in front of everyone and everyone's loving it, and she's going to bring up Sweden. And do you know what she said? The S word was Seth Rich. And she rabbit holed that entire party with, this is a school teacher at my local school, and she just rabbit holed the entire party with the whole story. So I was trying to be light because it's someone's party, and it was like the first party I'd been to since the end of the lockdown. So I was like excited, and there it was. And she said Seth Rich, and I almost fell over and kind of like, if I could have done, we high-fived and we talked for a good hour or two afterwards and just decoded like, wow, there's another person. So the bright news was I could have done that 2 years ago, and I can tell you that I would have had a number of people come up to me and spit at me about Julian. And yesterday I had the most positive, inquisitive, that audience was really intrigued and wanted to know when the protest was and where they could turn up. It was really heartwarming to feel that there was people, we're not all zombie sheep in New Zealand, unaware. It was really nice because this is just my local community. I didn't think anyone was like that here, so that was exciting.
I mean, in a country of 50 million sheep, like literal sheep, it only takes about 20 warriors to stand up to reclaim those rights.
It's quite mountainous, No, I mean, in all it's in all seriousness, New Zealand is a guinea pig nation. So I was seeing the rolling out of censorship back in the Bernie days, and I told American friends in the Bernie campaigns, because I was well into that at the time. I had no idea that he was a sheep herder, but I was in many groups, and I said to them, look, I'm telling you, I have 50 likes for a kitten, and I've got 0 for a political post. And they were just like, no, you're just imagining it. No, people aren't interested in politics. And that's what people still tell me to this day. Oh, people just not interested in that. They don't want to hear the bad news. And that's what you hear. But I knew that they were testing out something in New Zealand. I was absolutely positive. I had all sorts of weird shit happened. And I realized, and I talked to Susie about it and realized we're just a guinea pig nation where you try out the censorship. And Jacinda is the figurehead of censorship in this world, I think, with Macron. And, it's... Well, anyway, I could go on for ages about that, but it's disappointing in a country where we had nuclear free, we had women first voting, women first at university, gay rights. We were right ahead of the game, fighting out against France nuclear tests in the Pacific. New Zealanders, I'd be so proud to now be a Kiwi. I'm obviously originally Londoner, but I felt quite proud to be a Kiwi and coming here, and it's a bit of a letdown, to be honest. Isn't it?
And that's something that we really see, like you were saying earlier, all around the world. Like, it's not one government, it's not one person. It is the overarching system that people have been warning about for, depending on how far back you look, centuries, decades, what have you. But the censorship is something that takes it to a whole new level, because before it was non-technological, I guess would really be the only way to define it, where if you wanted to spread something, you could start your own media company, you could get your own printing press, and you could put your paper out there. For a time, you could pretty much start your own radio show for a while, turn into guerrilla radio, what have you. But they didn't have the ability to pinpoint every single person that person worked with to make that happen. It was just that one person put at the forefront. And that's the part with the censorship that is the most devastating, because they can figure out how to pinpoint just enough people to smush them into a social media chamber and lock maybe 1,200 to 15,000 people into this conversation point, and then not allow it to leave those boundaries. So I think that's what we were seeing more than anything right now, is gross compartmentalization. And it's trying to break that. That is essentially the new struggle to be heard in the space.
Well, I was kind of wondering whether a sort of serendipity for Assange movement would be a good idea, because I found that although you'd only be contacting 1 or 2 people at a time, it would be a slow process. But I thought we're just playing by their rule book. We have to start thinking like they're thinking. We have to have our own think tanks and our own Cambridge Analytica and our own bloody Integrity Initiative, and we need to use the tools that they're using in big data back at them. I mean, I theorized about, wouldn't it be great if we could, I know academics are all gone as well, but wouldn't it be great if we could actually crowdsource the funding for some research that would empirically prove our position, that the media is and where this terrible sort of messaging and brainwashing is actually coming from, by statistical analysis and looking at the journalism, maybe getting mathematicians and journalists to work together to try and home in on that and identify these personalities and these think tanks that are actually originating the data. Be really scientific about it, if you like. I'm not the person who would know how to do that, but I'm theorizing that we need to play by their games. We need to, and so the serendipity idea was just go to whatever comes into your mind, a random site, and then look down their page and look for the next thing they mention or the next organization, and then go to that organization and frame the message each time. Because it's very easy to frame the Free Assange message to apply to anything, anything, environment to politics, corruption, it all. So it's very easy. I think if there was a way for people to tap into these kind of random pathways through the net and just start picking through, I think that would be more effective than us all screaming in groups to each other. Because I know for a fact, seeing it from my end, my real life friends never see my posts, other than a couple that are negative and always irk at me about, they're quite neoliberal and academic in their opinions, and they hate anything anti-Hillary, that sort of stuff, and they'll always come in and niggle about censorship or revisionism or anything that I'm saying they don't like, and they're always there. But then the rest are all activists, 100% activists. There'll be hardly any real life friends seeing my stuff, and it's quite apparent how that's working. And I would love to make it work against them the other way, if people could collectively do something bizarre that they're not expecting, that the AI is not expecting.
That was the idea behind trying to encourage as much postering and banner dropping, like the term wheat pasting, because let's say your Facebook post will be seen by 50 people, or your Twitter post will be seen by 50 people. A sign you put up in the street on a telephone pole will be seen by hundreds. Like, literally posting on a pole will get it seen more and by a larger diverse community than anything on social media at this point. And that's why we, since the very beginning, have encouraged the idea of decentralized activism.
We've
and
talked about going low tech and old school since like day one.
Like
paper letters with the sign.
Julian Assange has a radio now.
Carrier
in Belmarsh prison.
So we have to bombard those radio stations with messages.
There needs to be a guerrilla radio station set up specifically to give Julian accurate, up-to-date, and hopeful information.
UK Radio Free Assange. You can
or Radio Sputnik, because I'm assuming there's one over there, should divert all resources to providing non-propagandized information specifically to educate Julian Assange on his case.
And now that there's an opening for a crazy drunk right-winger on fault lines, like maybe we can find somebody to fill that spot. You know,
crazy drunk right-winger.
I could start drinking again, but I don't think anybody wants that. I guarantee you nobody wants that. We've got about 2 minutes left of that clip.
Not till you have to go, just the video.
Oh,
not till you didn't hang out as long as you want to, Alex. You kick it. But I think we should like, you know, white knuckle through the final 2 minutes of that. I would eventually like to create a for A clip of the tape being rolled and us talking about parts of it. So I do want to get through it. So Sleepy Josh, if we could hit the play button on
guy remains free. You know, back in the old days when men were men and countries were countries, this guy would die of lead poisoning from a bullet in the brain, and nobody would know who put it there.
Julian Assange is a cyber terrorist in wartime. He's guilty of sabotage, espionage, crimes against humanity. He should be killed.
This man is an enemy of the state. WikiLeaks is perhaps some sort of a virtual weapon of mass destruction.
Right. That Mr. Assange has given aid and comfort to the enemy. He's empowered the enemy. He's put Americans at risk. He's put the allies of Americans at risk. This geopolitical, military, economic chess game that goes on constantly on the entire planet. He's taken away some of our advantage and he's given it to our enemies. And I wish and I hope that there's a way that we can find a way to prosecute a man like that we can protect ourselves. And if we fail to do that, or even if we're successful in that and it exposes some other vulnerabilities, I suggest, Mr. Speaker, that this Congress take a look at some new legislation, a new structure of law that's really not brought about because of the actions of Mr. Assange, but brought about because the actions of our enemies are terrorist enemies.
The foundation stone of this WikiLeaks issue is an illegal act. The Australian Federal Police is going to provide the government with some advice about potential criminal conduct of the individual involved. What I would say about the publication of the WikiLeaks information is it's grossly irresponsible.
I think that WikiLeaks and its founder, Julian Assange, should be facing criminal charges, and his website, which he uses to aid and abet our terrorist enemies, should also be shut down to defend our national security. It's time that the Obama administration treats WikiLeaks for what it is, a terrorist organization whose continued operations threatens our security. Shut it down. Shut it down. It is time to shut down this terrorist organization, this terrorist website, WikiLeaks. Shut it down, Attorney General Holder.
So, in case anybody is curious as to why Julian Assange was granted asylum in the Ecuadorian embassy, that's why. He very clearly was a targeted individual by multiple hostile state governments. I do want to point out real quick, there was a clip in there that showed Christine O'Donnell, who was she never got elected, but she was running for office. She had to put out a commercial, a campaign commercial explaining away the fact that she was not, in fact, a witch. That's who that woman is. In case anybody can remember that far back, there a really awkward campaign commercial of Christine O'Donnell going, "I'm not a witch. I'm a real person." Like that was, she had to do that because once upon a time she was on Politically Correct with Bill Maher and she had talked about like reading a couple of books about witchcraft or something. People took it way the fuck out of hand. But anyway, fuck those people.
So there's a whole bunch. I got like 11 things written on here, from the commentary that sounds like 9/11 to the like hyper masculine talk trying to make telling the truth sound like a bad thing, to accusing Julian of crimes against humanity, which is pure projection. The part that bothered me the most was the guy, like the US rep, I don't even know who the fuck it was, but basically explaining, how this is bad for our geopolitical situation, because our enemies will be able to use this to gain additional information on the global chessboard of geopolitics. Right? That was like almost word for word what he said. Like, I'm paraphrasing like crazy. But so the group in control right now, according to that man, is the person actively trying to commit genocides or actively committing genocides around the world. And their enemies are the people trying to actively stop genocides around the world. And I just think that trying to recognize that it's not like there's this duality or the good guys and the bad guys fighting against each other. There are people that are trying to commit genocide and exploit people and destroy the planet for their own gain. And then there's the people trying to stop them. And that's what geopolitics means.
But then there's the argument that even that by informing them, for instance, of the Vault 7 stuff, they've actually done them a favor in letting them know how many back doors they had open to actual enemies. It's so depressing that they're describing someone who actually the enemy is the people, isn't it? I mean, describing someone who would inform the people of things that are, you know, worthy of being told. There's no question really there, is there? It's amazing. It's an amazing piece of, I've only heard the audio, but I mean, it's cringeworthy sitting here. You just can't fathom how people can suck it up.
I can't wait until the decade comes where we can play those videos and either put rest in pieces with their death date or the day that they were put in jail for the rest of their life.
You want the vindication, eh?
I want the justice for the things that have been committed wrong against the people in this world.
I think there's a lot of people crying out for that. You know, there's all sorts of groups on Facebook, whether their passion is Seth Rich or whether it's the corruption of the Republican Party. Well, it doesn't matter. There's so many groups out for this information.
I want to make sure that the point gets driven home, not especially if you're the type of person that interacts with various movement groups on social media, that their movement, whatever it is a doomed enterprise without the ability to communicate freely, without at least a semblance of a free press, and without Julian Assange, without WikiLeaks, with the legal precedent set, any publisher anywhere can be prosecuted by any hostile government anywhere. If that goes through, their movement is a doomed enterprise, and they need to get on board with advocating for Julian Assange, with supporting the movement to free Julian Assange. You can walk and chew gum at the same time. You can have not even cross purposes, but purposes that merge and still be an effective organization. Like, it's possible.
And the Black Lives Matter protests have showed that better than anything, with the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of journalists in the US that have just been brutally attacked by police. I think the last count we had a few weeks ago was 355 incidents reported across the United States from the start of the George Floyd protest. And I want to say 51 of them included assault. Like, literally, like, being beaten by a fucking police officer for being...
No, it was over 60 when we covered it. I think it was 62 or 60.
Didn't the grey zone suggest it was mostly police as well? Or was that... I shouldn't say that.
Yeah, mostly police committing violence against journalists.
Police.
Yeah, but these are police that are trained by the IDF. And it wasn't until they started receiving IDF training that it was really open season on journalists, women, and children for the police. And now, because they get to experience, a day or a week or a month in the life of an Israeli military soldier, it's open season on journalists and women and children.
And it's a hand-me-down of all the military equipment to the police in order to make them look less and less friendly and make them more, just more and more divorced from the people, which, that's happening. Meanwhile, that's happening in the market, as Julian pointed out with Yanis, that, we're decoupling from the 0.1%, aren't we? And the 99% we're being left in the gutter. But I mean, there is a good awakening about it. At least that's something. But I mean, it's futile trying to get to these people. We just have to get as many people to see that video and those horrors all one after the other in order to change their mind. The thing is, I was talking to my friend about this. How do we need to target the people that we can definitely win over? I guess some of these people are absolutely lost causes, the blue no matter who factor. Some of them are lost causes, so maybe we have to really think about what our target audience and who are the people that are going to actually start doing stuff on the ground and actually start arranging protests or whatever it is that they're going to do. We need to find a way of getting the message out that it's that serious now, that it doesn't matter what your job is. In a way, if you're protecting your job, we're all in the shit if we don't speak out.
So locally, I'm going to start doing almost like a teach-in thing with people who, because of the George Floyd protests and the Black Lives Matter movement being at the forefront of the conversation, really, I'm going to start doing presentation, teach-in type thing about the history of activists in Black civil rights movements being targeted, and the transition from COINTELPRO to fusion centers and how fusion centers operate and how fusion centers target activists, because that's a way to introduce WikiLeaks and Julian Assange into the conversation naturally without trying to hijack it.
Is Fusion Center the same thing? What is a Fusion Center? Is it like Integrity Initiative, a think tank?
No, they're literal offices that coordinate between federal agencies and police.
Oh, I see. Right. Well, we probably already have that in New Zealand. We're just trialing it for you. And we won't say anything here. We'll just keep quiet and just go, it's okay. Jacinda's beautiful. Yeah.
But I would encourage anyone who can reach out to either a local Black Lives Matter chapter or through various, like, every town pretty much has a couple of different Facebook groups where people either try and snitch each other out or try and like surround each other in groupthink. And since I don't know, performative wokeness and white people showing off for other white people that they're good woke white people is a thing now. Like this provides a perfect in for people who are information activists to kind of step up and be like, okay, since you're all on board with this one thing, here's the eventuality of becoming outspoken and putting yourself out on the line because of this one thing. Here's what happens.
So in other ways, training people to be outspoken and to have the confidence to go and do that. Because I don't even know. I'm pretty good at making a fool of myself in order to get the message out. And because I think spectacle, I'm one of those people. I can do that and make a scene. But I am not sure that I have the skills and to go and talk to a room full of people, about Black Lives Matter or any other kind of race issues, particularly here in New Zealand. Pākehā, which is, the white New Zealanders, it's really bad form to start sort of directing, Black people who've been persecuted and put into private prison systems. And it's all the same stuff, only in a slightly lesser degree here. But it's pretty insulting to them for you to use their race as a protest thing. And I've been pulled up before because I wanted to do Te Reo translations, Maori translations of the Unity 4J stuff, and I had a huge amount of hate from people here. Not all people, but the people who were sort of in the blue pill department of they just thought I was being incredibly insensitive because I'm a white person. How dare I try and help them with anything? So it's not that it hasn't got the full same kind of feel here. We've got to be a little bit more careful because we don't have quite that problem. It's much more under the surface, I suppose. And then you only have to look across the ditch to Australia to see how bad it can be compared to, you know, somewhere like here where in actual fact quite a lot has been tried to be done, I suppose. Probably making a fool of myself there because there's an awful lot of things that we've done wrong in New Zealand as well. We're not by any a good example of that. But yeah, there is a problem of someone white coming in and telling people who are having a race. It wouldn't work here, I think. But I would give it a try, but I would want to be trained. I wouldn't know how to go about it.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting that like you, and I'm speaking to you, Alex, and you, the audience. But you as a white person, like, you know, kick open the door and be like, all right, fuckers, sit down.
People are always wary of people commandeering movements, aren't they? They're always a bit wary of someone coming in. You know, I've done it at anti-war to try and bring out the Assange, and it's people don't appreciate it because they're used to it, and that's usually how infiltrators come in and cause ruckus and then set off the whole. You know, it's the usual story. Everyone's suspicious.
We're in the Assange movement. We are especially equipped to have conversations about targeted activism, about you know, information sharing, and about cybersecurity, because we have all been advocates of, you know, encryption, and we've had really just unlimited amounts of experience in, you know, dealing with being targeted activists, with, you know, how to sidestep and work around three-letter agencies. And it's a vital component of any activism movement to be able to communicate securely and to sidestep the people who would otherwise trip you up, so we can help, you know. And there's a huge huge like amount of space between being a white ally and being an accomplice. And an accomplice is somebody who it doesn't say like, okay, you know, I got you back, I support you. It's I'm standing next to you, and if violence should come upon you, I am going to put myself in front of you in order to, you know, make sure that you get to walk away safely. That applies to information sharing. It really does. Like I'm not suggesting anybody try and take over a meeting, but, you know, offer your skills, your ability to communicate information that's relevant and vital, like secure communications. Offer that up, and if it's accepted, you know, then run with it. If people are like, yeah, no, we already know we're being tracked, we don't care, that's a really weird conversation to have, because
that's a really common conversation though.
Care, you know, who needs civil liberties? Fuck civil liberties. We've got some virtue signaling to do.
I've had a conversation with someone who worked at GCSB here and told me how serious it was that we needed to spy on people. There was absolutely no question because she'd worked there and that was it. So, you know, I got the story and I was shut down. I didn't have much of an argument because I hadn't worked in a government department. So you know, I'm probably not knowledgeable enough about it, but yeah, it's yeah.
I think a lot of it too, about privacy and about the basic civil liberties that we're losing now. We need to find the way to re-inject it into the conversation. And working with the other groups, what I've found is essentially just being humble. Like, hey, I'm just showing up here and I'm just going to be quiet and I'm just going to listen for maybe 2 meetings, make a couple friends, and talk to them on a personal level about what I do and the activism that I take, because that's like, there are situations where you can walk into a room and be the boisterous, loud, fun, attention attractor. But then there's other times, like in the situation in the United States right now, at a Black Lives Matter movement, Julian Assange would be at the bottom of the topic list, if on it at all. But when you're there, absorb and listen and understand that perspective and talk with people on a personal level, like, hey, these are the issues that I care about. I'm here to defend yours, because if your rights can be taken away and his rights can be taken away, my rights can be taken away. So we have to get all of these rights and put them in a big old box and get them all together, and then all march down the street with this box and say, hey, this is what the fuck we want. And then step forward from there with it.
Yeah. I mean, some people, oh, sorry.
No, it's your freedom is my freedom. And yes, I enjoy a certain amount of privilege based on the color of my skin. My resume is never going to be thrown in the trash because of my first or last name, ever. Not gonna happen. At 42, I'm not going to get pulled over based on the color of my skin. Now, if my name is Ran or my plate is Ran, yeah, I'm getting pulled over and I'm getting hauled out of the car. Absolutely. Every single fucking time for 25 years now. But on a glance, that's not going to happen. But because I do enjoy that bit of privilege, it is my responsibility to help you guys in any way I possibly can achieve a level of independence that you desire, that you deserve. You know, that's my responsibility. And because I have that responsibility, I would be remiss if I didn't point to the fact that there is a person who's being tortured to death in Belmarsh Prison, who is being tortured to death in Belmarsh Prison because of the information that he published. And that information helps you tremendously understand what your government does, what private security companies do to people just like you. You know, it all meshes. It just takes a little bit of a walk to get there.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can make anything, as we say, relate to Julian Assange. And I think the Beans, Somerset Bean had done some amazing graphics, which were like really helping people, like if you were in the environment. Yeah. So maybe we need a race relations. Maybe we need a Black Lives Matter. We need a look at all these things that we've pointed out here that, you know, look at the hypocrisy. And I think that phrase, you know, first they came for the journalists, we don't know what happened next, is a great one, because everyone knows the long-winded one, but it just is succinct, isn't it? You know, we need to get that across to people, really, that this is the end of, you know, any kind of transparency in government, any kind of, you know, as I want to say retribution, but that's probably the wrong word, isn't it? That sounds a bit warmongery. But
my concern in that framing, first they came for the journalists. I feel like that doesn't put enough urgency. And I know we can all relate to it, but I feel like just commenting on it. At least in the US, it wasn't first the journalists. First, it was the Native Americans, and then it was the Blacks, and then it was the Asians, and then it was specifically the Japanese. And then it became, in the 70s, with the war on drugs, Black and poor communities, and has just expanded. And then after all of these people are in jail, after millions of immigrants are in camps, after they've successfully isolated all of these communities in and of themselves, then they came for the journalists.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think they just do that to shorten it off. I think it's just because everyone knows what comes first, but then it's just a reminder about the really important part that this is, you know, that we have a journalist who's being well, I mean, he's not even from America. We you know, even just hitting home that little point, and then comparing that to Saudi Arabia, do they get to bring over an American journalist? We can compare it to the, you know, the Reuters, the journalist killed in actually collateral murder, which that story is all coming out, isn't it? It's a daunting prospect, but I was actually thinking when you were talking about going to meetings, I was actually thinking, you know, in terms of workshops, because I feel like I need to learn still. Like I feel very alone here in New Zealand. I've got friends in this all over the place, but they come into town for it, and it's not, we're all so far and few between, and I still feel like a novice, and yet I feel that there's an incredible responsibility to get on with it and do it well. And I feel like I need someone to give us workshops, whether they're online or, you know, there's a lot of skills that we don't have and we have to work through them. They don't have to be public ones, but I think having some way to meet up and educate each other, because I'm the bull in the china shop type. I'm the one who makes a fool out of myself, and I'm quite happy to make a spectacle and do creative things and music and all that stuff. But I'm not the person who's very good at doing a sell and crafting it to the right message. And I feel like I need more workshops myself first before I would be wanting to go out and tactfully do that. I just know that I'd put my foot in it. I put my foot in the mouth and I would say something wrong that would turn the whole room or whoever the group I was talking to against the whole idea. And that scares me, I guess. I guess it would anyone. I think there's a lot of people like me that don't really know a lot yet and want to know more. And that, you know, if there was an avenue like that, I mean, I actually thought about asking you guys if you ever thought about doing a similar thing to the Discord that was going on with Unity4J or another version of it, so a clean go at trying to pull together all those resources again, because that was really,
we have a Discord set up.
I didn't even know you had a Discord.
Yeah, we have a Discord. It's just getting, it was disorganized, and we have like our social media team set up now. We have our like graphics approval process. We have a couple people working on videos. So we're building it out, but this is a great plug. So thank you. If you are interested in organizing with us, please join on Discord.
This is what I really feel more than anything, is that all these little remote groups that are everywhere and fighting or whatever they're doing, we really need to pull these people together. And I don't want to be the one to do it. And you guys are perfectly placed to be the one to pull all these groups together. I want to give you a list and say, right, come on.
If you could, I would absolutely love that.
It's all on Candles, and there's a few groups on Facebook. Unfortunately, I work a lot on Facebook. I do different things on Twitter and Facebook.
No, you got to, like, I hate Facebook, but the way that Twitter has algorithmically fucking just pigeonholed us, you know, especially us in the Assange community, it is fucking rough. On the Action for Assange account last night, like 9 o'clock or something like that, I put out a tweet through the Action for Assange account. As of right now, I'll tell you, I'll look at it, like right now. The amount of likes and retweets show you what a freaking bubble we experience. 940 likes. Okay, that's you know, a decently performing tweet for us being in a bubble. 624 retweets. Now there are accounts that get 25,000 fucking likes on it that only have 250 retweets.
Well, I've got a weirder one. 24 hours ago, I uploaded another copy of the same video, to be fair, but just with different cities added to it. So it was a slightly different video. And I put it up with the list of 26 cities. And the next morning, I went in to look to see, you know, how it had been picked up. 13,000 people had viewed the video, according to the stats, and only 6,000 people had impressions. So I had the opposite. I had like this weird numbers that didn't add up. And I was like, I took a screenshot. I just thought, I actually posted it in a reply to one of the ones where you were talking about that. Because I was like, well, I've kind of got it in the reverse here. So I'm sure not 13,000 people saw my video between last night and this morning. You know, that's not possible. I'm sure for me, that's definitely not possible. I'm not used to 900 likes. So... But yeah, it's something weird is going on. The hiding of messages as well, and the editing, like putting them down under the layers. That's all pretty nefarious stuff as well, isn't it? You know, you have to click down, and you won't see anything favourable for Assange for a while, particularly on the establishment ones, of course. I mean, why? You know, it's obvious though, isn't it?
But no, I mean, you do, like, Facebook is still a place where millions of people unfortunately congregate.
Yeah,
You know,
I'm being wary of it though.
if you already have an established presence there, you've got to use that. Like,
I?
it's got to be one of those things where, look, I mean,
You're muted, Steve.
Oh, I've lost you.
every time. But Facebook is unfortunately one of those places where if you've already got traction there, then you need to roll with your traction there.
I really love going there to certain groups to get information, like Caitlin Johnson Patreon group and Justice for Seth Rich are two groups where I go to all the time because they're so regularly updated with really fresh new information. Quite often I'll find the first information about an event there because people don't post a lot of rubbish. Actually, in those groups I get a lot of my news. But other than that, I'm not finding that I'm getting outside of the activist circle. I'm sure that Facebook would carry on quite happily, and the groups would carry on quite happily there. If I wasn't there, would it make a difference? You know, I'm very wary of Facebook. Actually, watching Anonymous Bites Back Facebook special completely changed my mind on Facebook. I'd been thinking about...
Is that the one where Commander X deleted his Facebook?
No.
And it took him like 3 goddamn hours to figure out how to delete his Facebook.
And then once you delete it, it takes 30 days to delete.
But it doesn't ever delete. We all know that.
That's
no,
the fuck,
but I've heard there's
what they tell
patches you can run. There's patches you can run that will corrupt it. So there's another movement called Corrupt Facebook. So I've been looking into that because I don't want to ruin my Assange post, but I wouldn't mind corrupting all my old stuff and my family stuff and all that stuff. I don't know if it's possible. I hope so. But Commander X, it wasn't Commander X. It was an Amazon and Facebook quite high up executive staff member who was blowing the whistle on all sorts of nefarious shit going on in Facebook, and before that in Amazon. So she'd experienced pretty awful working conditions and also suspect obviously the censorship, all the other things, but she talked at length on it and it was really, really enlightening. I'm sorry I can't remember her name, but it was an ABB Live special.
Alex. I'm just fucking with you.
Are we going to do the whispering now?
Oh, we could. Yeah. So real quick, I do want to pitch this because I think it's fucking hilarious. Okay. At least twice a week, I think, if I can, through Slow News Day, I'm going to start releasing like truly fucked up ASMR, where I get to like go off on war criminals. So, and I can't preview that right now because I don't have 2 microphones and we don't have it set up for the binaural audio. But that will be a thing. Look for that. I hope to. I'm gonna have a lot of fucking fun with it.
I think I'd like to fall asleep with that in my ear, like
right.
you know.
Right. Rush Limbaugh can only achieve erection by having 6 guys pee on him.
But the trouble is you spoil the smoothness with giggles. With so much noise of giggling, you won't be able to keep it together. How are you going to be able to keep the straight face?
You would be surprised what I can keep a straight face through.
It's basically going to be a test to see what Steve can get through and who and how we can insult powerful people with it. It's going to be fun.
Classic. Oh, I'd love to try that. I think I could do a whisper voice sometimes. I'm sure. Yeah, that's a fantastic idea. It's so left field.
Alex is here. We might as well just run through the news with Alex and get her reactions on some of this as well. Let me pull up the old
I think our first one is the Vault 7 one with the World Socialist website.
Yeah. So last week, it came out that that the CIA was caught totally by surprise at the over the release of Vault 7. And I think it's a little, like, it's necessary for a couple of reasons to explore. One being the fact that the CIA is just so supremely confident of itself. It's so intoxicated by the smell of its own farts that it doesn't even protect its own data. So let's jump right in. A newly released 2017 internal review of security practices at the CIA confirms that the top secret agency had developed an arsenal of cyber espionage tools and would not have known about the massive Vault 7 data hack of them had WikiLeaks not made it public. Vault 7 is the name given to a trove of hacked documents from the CIA's Center for Cyber Intelligence that were anonymously shared with WikiLeaks, which the online site began publishing information about on March 7th, 2017. The hack obtained nearly the entire arsenal of espionage tools and methods by which the CIA was conducting illegal electronic surveillance and cyber warfare around the world.
And why didn't they manage to catch it? Because they were too busy spying on Trump and doing all the Russiagate stuff for 3 years? Was it that kept him busy? What was it that stopped them from spying on everything and actually seeing that happened? I don't understand.
So here's what they say. They say, quote, the significantly the heavily redacted and partially released WikiLeaks Task Force final report says because the stolen data resided on a mission system that lacked user activity monitoring and a robust server audit capability, we did not realize the loss had occurred until a year later when WikiLeaks publicly announced it in March 2017. Had the data been stolen for the benefit of a state adversary and not published, we still might be unaware of the loss, as would be true for the vast majority of data on agency mission systems. So it's where they housed it and how they had it housed. It's very, very similar to the way that Chelsea Manning was able to get Collateral Murder and the other video that was actually never released because there was an FBI plant inside of WikiLeaks and he stole it on the way out. But it was basically lying around virtually unprotected with no internal audit program saying, oh, this system was breached. Like, just lazy shopkeeping.
And that's because they would have had to acknowledge that that system existed, most likely, where they stored all of their arsenal for cyber espionage. They would have had to acknowledge the fact that that were there should there be user profiles in place and all of these other things. So that shows just another level of them trying to bury this shit because it's put, from what it sounds like, on some back server on some office that like maybe someone has a key to get in, but digitally anyone can just crawl right up that wire.
And I mean, is this some of the concern that's raised? I'm not sure about this story, but the Huawei having a backdoor for China and then everything else having a backdoor for, you know, for Microsoft and anything American, UK, Five Eyes. Is it something to do with that? Is it because I'm not fully aware.
I mean, it could be like for how they accessed it and how they got in, because that is a large concern for who manufactures technology, like in what country, for what back doors are built into it. So that could have been a factor in it, but I don't know.
So there's a comment in my chat about, is this what Joshua Schultz was accused of stealing? And yes, it is. In the case of Joshua Schultz, the initial trial resulted in a hung jury, but the State Department, not the CIA, but the State Department, has said we would like to retry this individual. So they're not giving up on trying to crucify someone over the release of the Vault 7 materials. And it's still, like, to this day, there's barely been an acknowledgement in media or in government that, oh yeah, we had this entire arsenal of cyber warfare tools. Oh, by the way, the CIA can go into and digitally manipulate fingerprints and make data breaches, hacks, and emails look like they're coming from any country that the CIA wants. Like, that hasn't been talked about at all, and we're 3 years removed from the Vault 7 release. It's not something. I don't know if it's not sexy enough, but with all the fucking TV shows that are pushing CIA propaganda,
it's normalized
you would think that something as powerful as Vault 7 would be a worthwhile conversation to have for, just people who are viewers of that sort of media.
But isn't that all part of priming people so that you see the idea, you keep repeating it until it becomes kind of normal? House of Cards is the normal politics. Oh, right. Okay. Oh, when did I miss that? That just passed me by. And you just cruise into the next incremental change.
I mean, yeah, no, it's all about manufacturing the public's consent to get them to be like, oh yeah, that's the CIA and that's what they do and they must be the good guys because they're Americans, but at the same time, like, I think anybody reasonable who's watching a basically CIA porn glorification of intelligence agencies is going to be like, it's a little fucked up, like, even if they can't vocalize it in the back of their heads, there's got to be something just going off like, not sure that I'm comfortable with that, and all it takes is getting a toe in the door, in terms of being able to have a conversation, a real conversation about what intelligence agencies do and how they operate and who is at risk to being a victim of, Five Eyes global intelligence sharing networks. And spoiler alert, that's everyone. You, your grandmama, you're fucking, that dude that you got in a fight with in high school that you haven't talked to in 30 fucking years. All of you are at risk of being victimized by the Five Eyes global intelligence sharing network.
But until you're an activist, you don't care because you haven't done anything wrong theoretically, unless you're doing, you've got that, idea in your head because you don't understand how it is to be anyone else.
CIA talking point.
And the people that are willing to say that are the same people that still say we live in a democracy, where they're like, oh, no, I don't want to do anything because my government will fucking kill me. They'll throw my children into prison, drag me to Guantanamo Bay, and send my kids off to war. But
so the question is, do you go for the cognitive dissonance and try and get people to tune their minds, or do you, because do you shock them that much? How much do you red pill them in order to get someone to come around? And I think this is a problem, because if you go too hard, you scare them off because they go, oh my God, that means my lifestyle's gone, my career's gone. Oh my God, I'm an engineer. If I talk out on 9/11, my career's gone. I can't say anything. So there's just mass silence. Everyone knows, but no one's going to say shit because at the end of the day, it's your money, isn't it? This is the same for the media as well as engineers, as well as everyone, with all the blatant evidence that's there. Like when Hillary cheated the election, no one talked about the cheating the election. No one talked about the bank, the two positions. No one talked about that stuff. All we talked about was Russia hacking the election, and that's no accident. That's no accident, is it?
Right. Like, at what age do you tell your kids 9/11 was an inside job and Dick Cheney made trillions of dollars off of Iraq and Afghanistan? What age does that happen? Like, do you go, hey kids, sex feels good, wear a condom, and your government's gonna fucking kill you if you speak out against it? Like, what age do you inject the conversation of you're gonna die if you try to oppose state power?
I started mine.
I wouldn't say that, but I like to say be suspect of, be a little bit suspicious of your government. And I actually have been quite upfront with the kids on that. But you know, I see the things that are a little bit easier to hear, and I guess as they get older, you know, more can be revealed to them. I feel that, yeah, you've got to be a bit careful. You can't completely kill their world. I mean, I am really concerned what's going on for our kids after COVID. Are they going to ever have a normal life? Like,
So
if
here,
you
I
look
mean, that's a real quick. That's a fantastic point, and most of the kids, because I've got teenagers and I've got a kid that would be going into second grade, because I'm around them and their friends, you know, as often as possible, they're cynical as fuck by like 9. Like they are. They're you know, they know that they were born into a shit world. They're a little bit bitter about that. And they're fucking cynical. And because of that, like you feel really, really fucking bad. Like, wow, they're not gonna have a childhood whether I provide them one or not, you know. It's they're also being desensitized to just ridiculous amounts of violence and government overreach and all kinds of shit because they've all got one of these.
I had to explain to someone the other day why it's not a good thing that a 7-year-old plays a video game where the only goal is to kill people for enjoyment.
Right?
Like, I had to break that down. Like, I don't think a 7-year-old should kill people for fun. Like, I know it's digital, but you're still building neurological pathways in an early age of development. Like, there's other games you can play, but like, to Steve's point of violence and people's just inability to comprehend what the fuck.
Play Scrabble, you ankle biting son of a bitch.
Well, my daughter just won.
Words with friends,
was part of a team that won a debate, and it was what's better, corrupt government or no government? And no government won, and she was on the no government side. So I feel like she has had some kind of ingraining, but the idea of them being so desensitized, I mean, I find them arguing with me, but I do encourage that. You know, especially the older one.
Like I can't keep what I do from my family anyway, because I basically live in a fucking log cabin and the walls are really thin, you know. So I mean, they're gonna hear me no matter what. It's whether or not they listen, you know. I guess kind of remains to be seen. But I mean, I don't sugarcoat shit for anyone. Why would I do that for my own children? Like, they're gonna find out no matter if I tell them or not, and it's just gonna reflect poorly on me in their eyes if they're not hearing it from me. Because they gotta find out about this shit from somebody else. They're gonna be like, Dad, what the fuck? Why? I know you knew. Why didn't you tell us? You know?
Yeah, it is disappointing when that sort of thing happens. You know, the Santa Claus thing, isn't it? It's the tooth fairy. No, I am pretty upfront with them and very anti-war. They come to Monsanto protests with me, and I've been told off before when we did the Chelsea Manning one, where we were supporting Chelsea Manning when she couldn't be in Australia. You know, I had my children there. They were doing hula hooping and playing. We were playing violin outside the Embassy Theatre. And we had journalists there. It was quite exciting. And I had some nasty people come online and go, oh, look at you showing off your kids for Julian Assange, dancing for Julian Assange. And it was so horrible, the attacks that you got back for even having kids milling around in the area, not that they knew that they were mine or not. You know, and it just felt really like I'd done the wrong thing and I'd exposed them to politics. I know that people are very cagey because we're in a government town where the parliament is. No one wants to have their children going along to visible anti-war protests. And when we had Play Centre, it's a mother-run early childhood place, and we would sometimes want to go and join the anti-war protests. We'd have to ask the mums, and quite often our permission would be denied because they didn't want to have their kids anywhere near, you know, even something about children as a protest. They didn't want them there. But this was quite a few years ago. I think things have changed a little bit now.
So I don't encourage people taking their kids to protests here in the States because, you know, we've got fucking video footage of a 10-year-old getting a can of mace emptied into her eyeballs. So I mean, like, I think that's a bad idea. But I do think
more like a vigil.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I do think you can have that conversation at home with your family, relatively fucking safely.
That was actually, and this is to my just understanding, a key thing in civil rights era counter propaganda against the police was having not kids, not children, but like teenagers there and people that would like skip out of high school or what have you to go to the protests, because the level of violence at that point was consensual. Like they understood what was happening. But at the same time, it was still the imagery of a child with a dog on its leg or 3 kids getting hit with a fire hose. So I don't advocate for kids. Like I won't take my daughters to certain protests.
I mean, we're talking tiny here in New Zealand. Well, obviously, we're not talking Washington, D.C. at all.
There is a place for young people in demonstration, especially in a time right now, because someone in that late stage teens, early 20s era of life, their friends are still very impressionable about the world to an extent. So if one of them is brave enough to step forward and be victimized by this process, then it pulls way more people forward with them, where maybe 2 friends come with him next time. Like, hey, we're not going to let this happen to my fucking buddy. Like, we don't really understand it, but we're coming. And then something happens to another group and 5 or 6 more people show up because that's the way that people defend each other. So I think that getting that younger generation activated is very important, and keeping them away from the violent protests that are happening right now is important. But also, if they're old enough to consent and understand, I think it's something that they should be allowed to do.
In this Lily White Valley right now at this minute, since 10 o'clock, there were a number of high school students that organized a Black Lives Matter march. And there were people like this is how fucked up of a world we live in. Grown-ass adults, because one of the organizers had put her phone number on the flyer, grown-ass adults were advocating for other grown-ass adults to call a teenager and harass her about this and fucking shout at her about this. Now, that the sickness of that aside, it still fucking blows my mind. And fuck you, Larry Azzaro, for using your personal Facebook page to advocate harassment for a fucking teenager. That aside, like I was trying to talk to a couple of people who were bitching about the fact that, oh my God, they're going to be marching along Highway 9 and, they just like made up fucking problems about this thing. I'm like, there are a ton of teenagers who are doing something, who aren't doing various forms of nothing. And regardless of whether or not you think that Black Lives Matter is a fucking secret George Soros CIA cult, like, those teenagers don't. They don't. They honestly think that they're, standing up for something they believe in, which oddly enough is that people should, have rights and be treated as human beings instead of othered and targeted. Like, if that's a bad thing in your mind, you're a fucking monster. I don't know what to tell you. Like, you're a shit human being and you need to sit the fuck down and let these kids do their thing. Maybe talk. Maybe they can teach you something.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I'm fading because it's about 7 in the morning now and I haven't slept. And I'm probably not being very useful in conversations at this point, because I'm not thinking on my feet. But would it be all right to read out the cities of Candles for Assange events that we've got kind of brewing, and I'll do that. And if you want me to answer any other questions, I do. But I think I will fall asleep.
No, man, do your thing, and then you can bounce. That's why we got like 2 or 3 other items of news to go over, and then we're done.
Okay. Well, I'm going to jump back into the Candles for Assange then. So on Friday the 3rd of July, it is Julian's birthday. At the moment, we have 26 cities and probably 14, 15 countries. I'm counting Palestine and Israel. So we have in New Zealand, kicking off for the whole world, Wellington, and then Auckland, and then Sydney, Melbourne, Darwin shortly after that. Next would be Tel Aviv. And then we have a whole series in across Europe. So we've got Stockholm, and they've been doing actions through the week. Germany have been doing actions for the last couple of weeks. It's quite busy there already. We've got Vienna. They're getting on the back of an anti-war protest that did get permission because they did not get permission for a protest. We should have Toronto. And there may be something virtual there, or it may be a small action like the yellow ribbons, putting yellow ribbons around trees with Free Assange message on them. As far as I know, if you guys are still doing Washington, D.C. For a small ceremony, whatever you're doing, Washington, D.C., Tulsa, Denver, and Moscow in Idaho. Is it Idaho? Moscow? And then we've got Mexico City, Guadalajara, and then we've got Lima in Peru, and then we've got 2 in Brazil. One is virtual in Natal, and then we've got Rio de Janeiro, which is a private one, and I will soon be putting out all the contact details and further details on Candles for Assange on Twitter. So just wanted to get that out there. We're on Facebook as well. We have a group, and whenever I have more information, or you'll see it on the pinned comment on Twitter or the pinned comment on Facebook. So sorry, I just had to do that before. I couldn't actually produce consonants and vowels anymore.
I just have to say, Alex, we appreciate the hell out of you. You were one of the very first guests that we had on the vigil. I think the first. And
me and Timothy.
And the work you've done since then and since you've started Candles and all this has been absolutely phenomenal. So I just want to thank you for everything. Let people know where to find you and if you have any final thoughts.
Yeah, sure. Well, I have a YouTube channel, Alex Hills, and there's quite a lot of lovely videos and there are a lot of music. And I've got the Facebook group, which is a lovely group of people, really amazing activists. Some of them are doing it online, some of them are doing it on the street, but we're trying to post as much information there about actions. But always on the pinned post there, you'll get a little bit more information. What we tend to do is we try to find out whatever protests are going on around the world and just encourage solidarity actions. We're not trying to like run any groups or tell anyone how to do things or what they're to do. We just want to list protests and encourage small actions at the very minimum all around the world, because I think that the feeling of solidarity is needed. And in England, we've got a message that needs to get out. In USA, we've got a different message that needs to get out. In Australia, again, you've got a different message. But then the rest of the world, we're all feeling very cut off and isolated as Assange supporters. And anything you guys and anything all of us can do to help work together and bring all those groups together and sort of muck in a little bit, because obviously, you know, we're handfuls of people everywhere and it's really hard to get work done. So please support Action for Assange and be their gopher and be their graphics person and whatever they need to keep on doing what you're doing. And I guess what I'm saying is I would love us to all somehow be more organized. Does that make sense? Without me being, or you or anyone having to be the person with their head on the block? Is it possible that some organizing force can take us and organize us? Yeah, that's my last and leaving wish, I guess.
Well, thank you very much for joining us. And you can at Candles for Assange, that's number 4, and Anti-War Alex, I believe, on Twitter.
Oh yeah, I'm Greenweaver Arch. You'll have to excuse my long name, but I don't know if I should change it at this point. It seems to have been going on so long, but I didn't even know at Twitter that you should really keep your handle short when I came on, and it's my business. So Greenweaver Arch. But anti-war, Clovis for Assange, Candles for Assange, usually find me under that tag somewhere. And there's also Nat in Mexico, who's really, you know, helping me gather the cities. At the moment, we just have city names and not all the details, but contacts. We've got contacts so people can make local contacts privately, at least. And any help you can give us, like giving us the heads up about cities that we can include or people we can tap on the shoulder. I haven't been doing a lot of it because obviously I've just had a new hip. So I've been a little bit out of action and not doing as much as I used to, but I'm gearing up ready for 3rd of July.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us, Alex.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't quite make to the end of your show.
Oh, you're fine. Don't worry. There'll be plenty more.
All right, then. I'll mute off. I hope I'm muting properly. But thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure, and I really love what you guys are doing. I don't know what we'd do without you, really.
Well, thank you.
Bye, Steve.
Bye, Alex. It's wonderful to see you, as always. You make me smile.
Oh, good. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad I can do something. Yeah.
I want to jump into the Wise Up Action. I guess, I don't know, call to action. Guys, that sounds clunky now that I say it. But friend of the show and wonderful human being, Emmy B, has put this out. She says, write to the UK media to urge them to correct the record in the Julian Assange case, or simply stand up for the man who has defended press freedom and the right to publish with his body. Here is a fine example full of passion and good resources to use. And this is fairly extensive, so I don't know if I want to go into all of it, but I will make sure that we drop the link into all of the chats, because it's a fantastic template letter. And yeah, you don't even have to be a UK citizen to chastise the UK media. And you can overlap a lot of this and use it to encourage the I'm trying to find a nice way to the craven stenographers to power and arbiters of access journalism that we have here in the United States. Use it as a template for them as well, because when groups like the Council of Europe Parliamentary Assembly, or as much of a sham as Amnesty International is, Amnesty International, like, those names carry weight with the people who, you know, do exist to proliferate access journalism. And there are many cases where, you know, shaming somebody into doing the right thing has worked, especially with people that are as fragile in their egos as most access journalists are. Like, you cannot, like, you just barely take a swipe at some reporters and they just light up like a goddamn Christmas tree. So this is I guess, weaponized shaming.
And so just this letter that's on here on this Wise Up Action link, which I did drop into the chat for everybody. This is a huge resource for being able to share information with people about Julian, even outside of this. Like, even if you have friends and you want to send them a specific link about something they might care about, this is a great way to find that specific kind of information. Because
yeah, just in the last week or so, I've had a couple of really good friends and some people that I grew up with that have been like, hey, I just now noticed that you frequently talk about Julian Assange, and I just now noticed that the U.S. press is a nightmare. What can I do, and how can I learn more? And yeah, the amount of links that are packed in to just this letter have more than enough background material to get people going.
Absolutely.
Do we want to jump to the Consortium News article?
Yeah, absolutely. About the Europolls?
Yeah, because it kind of overlaps too. At the beginning of June, there were a number of different members of parliament, as well as a couple of former U.S. government officials that signed an open letter to the UK Commons Justice Committee chair, and it's a request for a compassionate release. So just I want to just focus on the bullet points here, because this is the relevant information that you, if you're watching the vigil right now, can also share with people. Mr. Assange is a non-violent remand prisoner with no history of harm to the community. He's not convicted and is thus entitled to the presumption of innocence. The doctors of Mr. Assange warn he is at high risk from dying if he contracts COVID-19, as he has a pre-existing chronic lung condition. We are advised that COVID-19 is rapidly spreading through UK prisons, that there are infections and at least one death at Belmarsh Prison. We understand that the prison is short-staffed and normal activity regimes are suspended. Mr. Assange is in poor mental health due to spending so much time in solitary confinement over recent years, and prison COVID-19 lockdown measures are further undermining his mental health. And you know, when you go down the list of people who signed this, I mean, it's quite a few who are influential members through, you know, in their respective countries. But also you've got people like Mike Gravel and Ron Paul, who are ostensibly at opposite ends of the political spectrum.
That's what I was going to point out, was Giannis and Ron Paul on the same issue, on the same position, on the same issue. And like, this is the crucible that people need to organize around. Like, this is the crossroads, the intersection that every activist community needs to gather on. And just showing people here all of these different names from all of these different organizations around the world should, personally, I think, just flip people's minds, because you have everyone from reformist groups to the Green Party that are supporting this, to the libertarians, to the hardcore ANCONs. So I think that this in and of itself, like literally handing this out as a flyer, if that's the way you choose to do your personal activism, I think is a great tool.
Hell yeah. Moving along, because I would like to end on time. I think I might go try and catch some of my local protest action.
Yeah, I think the last one we have to talk about actually is the unredacted FOIA or the unredacted Mueller report documents that came out about Julian Assange.
And this is a tweet thread with really, really, really hard to read shit. So could you kind of just give an overview, Andre?
Yeah, no, I'll just read through because this whole section was redacted in the report. This is page 52. Stone has publicly denied having any direct contact with Assange and claimed to not have any discussions with an intermediary connected to Assange until July or August 2016. Other members associated with the Trump campaign, however, told the office that Stone claimed the campaign as early as June 2016, before any announcement by Assange or WikiLeaks, that he had learned that WikiLeaks would release documents damaging the Clinton campaign. On June 12, 2016, Assange claimed in a televised interview to have emails relating to Hillary Clinton, which are pending publication, but providing no additional context. In a briefing, the office, former deputy campaign manager Rick Gates said that before Assange's June 12th announcement, Gates and Stone had a phone conversation in which Stone said something big was coming and had a leak of information. Stone also said to Gates that he thought that Assange had Clinton's emails. Gates asked Stone when information was going to be released. Stone said it would happen very soon, according to Gates, between June 12th and July 16, 2016. Stone reported the information was coming. Manafort and Gates both called and asked Stone when the release would happen, and Gates recalled candidate Trump being generally frustrated that Clinton's emails had not been found. Paul Manafort, who would later become campaign chair, provided similar information about the timing of Sonja's statements about WikiLeaks. According to Manafort, sometime in June 2016, Stone told Manafort that he was dealing with someone who was in contact with WikiLeaks and believed that there would be an immediate release of emails by WikiLeaks. So the middle paragraph in this really conflates two parts of the conversation. The part where Trump calls for Hillary Clinton's emails to be released, and this is just to annotate this really quick, is referring to when he was on the campaign trail saying someone should release it, I don't care if it's Russia. That is, I believe, what that is referring to. So that's even outside of this whole context. It just seems like that was put in there, in my opinion, kind of understanding the situation to detract from it. But I would like to have everyone look up the Kim Dotcom interview that he gave, where he specifically said as early as 2015 that they had dirt on Hillary Clinton for the presidential election, that he knew something was coming. So what Paul Manafort or what Roger Stone is talking about here is literally nothing that wasn't already known by anyone paying attention. So the fact that this had to be redacted out in the first place is just, it's fucking mind-blowing to me.
I keep on, I mean, I've said it like 3 or 4 times just in this broadcast, but I mean, fuck, dude, we really do live in a cartoon. We really do. I don't know. I'm trying to find a good way to put it. The unmitigated, asinine, ridiculousness that we, as just regular citizens, are subjected to, not only by our government but by asshats like Roger Stone. It's ridiculous. Like it, I don't know. I keep on trying to like figure out how we got here, and I keep coming back to the Nazi draft. Like I keep coming back to Operation Paperclip, being like, oh, because we had Nazis who helped bring about our intelligence agencies and our space program and basically everything else in between. They courted a wonderful relationship with people in the media, and there's a fantasy reality that's being presented to us every single day as this is how the world works. And it's our job, and it's the job of the rest of the independent media to go, no, it's fucking not, and then do something about it. And speaking of doing something about it, Action for Assange is crowdfunding to try and get back to Washington, D.C. in September. And we really, really need your help with that. If you aren't able to donate directly to the GoFundMe, that's not a problem. Please share the link. I do want to make a point. I've talked about before that all of the super chats that are coming to Slow News Day through my channel are going to get rolled over into the DC fundraiser. Here's the thing about that. YouTube, and I think I've explained this before, YouTube takes 40% off the top of your super chat, and it is your dollar goes much, much further by donating directly to the GoFundMe. But the other part of that equation that I'm not sure if I've mentioned this before or not, it takes 2 or 3 months for YouTube to pay out on those super chats. So we're about to enter July. I'm just now going to see March or April's super chats. So by the time September rolls around, I will just be getting June's super chats. And look, man, I love the fact that there are people that super chat during live streams. Like it's fucking awesome. And like, you don't necessarily have to stop doing that, but your dollar will go further if you donate directly to the GoFundMe. And then also, if you are a Patreon of my show, Slow News Day, cancel that shit and support me on the Rockfin, because that way you get access to the premium content of all of the other creators that put out material through Free Thinking Media on the Rockfin. And having said that, we should probably Streamlabs is just clunky as fuck, Anthony. I have tried really, really hard to like and support and try and use Streamlabs, and it is just not user friendly at all. And then like once you sign up for it, canceling it is almost as hard as getting rid of your Facebook account. But yeah,
with that said, I was going to say, my name is Andrew Smith. You could find me on Twitter at Andrew Zigman. I would like to thank Alex for joining us, everybody for watching, Steve, Josh, Kimber, and everyone else for their behind the scenes help. You can find us on Twitter at action_4 Assange. You can also go to actionforassange.com. We post weekly calls to action there, as well as roll calls for organizers and different things like that. So we look forward to seeing you on there.
My name's Steve Poikonen. I do host a show called Slow News Day. You can find it by typing in Slow News Day Podcast into your search bar on YouTube, or you can find me on the Rockfin, D-Live, and occasionally, but not really, Periscope. We really got to sort that out. We tried today. The Periscope's still fucking me. Commander X will be on the show tomorrow. I really, really look forward to those talks. X is fucking, it's so much fun. And he's creating money now. I think it's one of the things that we're going to talk about. Brand new to the world, Xcoin. Fucking, it'll be a good show. Make sure you catch it. Yeah, thank you to Alex and to Sleep Josh on the ones and twos, to Andrew. To you guys in the chat, we love you. Please share the links to the show, share the links to the GoFundMe, donate if you can. And if you can't, again, I get it. I really do. I'm fucking poor. But please share the links, and we will see you Tuesday. Good luck to us all.